first say a few words, and then the floor will be open to questions. First, Mr. the Chief Executive. Good morning. This morning, I'd like to talk to you about the pandemic. As you know, in recent days, there is a sign of the number of confirmed cases going down. Yesterday, there were about 6,000 cases. The government takes a positive view on the trend, declining trend of confirmed cases. The various departments are actively studying the room possible with a declining number of cases in relation to the arrangement for arrivals at the airport, in terms of quarantine and so on. All the departments are actively studying the relative issue to see if there's any room for relaxation. And when a decision is made, we will make an announcement. But I must stress that in terms of the overall direction of our strategy, we make sure that we could keep the epidemic under control. At the same time, we want to allow maximum room to to minimize this inconvenience to people arriving in Hong Kong. At the same time, we have to make sure that the old and the young face controlled risks. So, therefore, vaccination is a consensus among us all. People should get vaccinated to protect themselves and their family members. And so we will continue to work very hard in that direction. Now, in the past week, especially during the weekend, colleagues from different departments were actively promoting vaccination. Especially, there were visits to building blocks, and some elderly residents were convinced to take the vaccine. The SL government already allows a half-day leave for civil servants to take their children under free to take the vaccine. We hope the business sector will follow suit. In terms of infection control and epidemic control, the SL government is fully aware of the fact that while we try very hard to keep the infection under control, we need to allow maximum room for economic activities in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong would remain competitive in the world. And so we need to minimize inconvenience caused to travelers. That's why the SL government is closely monitoring the trend of infection numbers, and especially in terms of the declining trend now. And then we will do all we can to achieve the objectives I just mentioned. Now, the various departments have to make sure that each time when we make changes to the arrangement, things will go well, and we are able to keep risks to a minimum, while allowing convenience to travelers to the maximum. But then we want our policies to be consistent, so we don't have to backtrack on our policies. So now the floor is open to questions. Please use the microphone to speak. Please identify your organization, and please limit yourself to 2 questions each. The first question on the front row, the lady in black. I'm from Now. Good morning, Chief Executive. In recent days, many have been saying that perhaps the quarantine period could be relaxed to 0+7. So under what conditions will you allow the relaxation? And would you also do away with the PCR test before boarding? And then some have asked that there should be tracking app for travelers arriving in Hong Kong. Would you consider it? And when would you make an announcement on the new arrangement? And then there are news that you are inclined to allowing exemption to the Hong Kong Association of Athletics affiliates so they could hold the Standard Chartered Marathon. But what happened in between? How come now they've cancelled their race? And then there are other major sports events such as the World Dragon Boat Racing Championships that's moved to Thailand. So finally, now Many experts have said that the government needs to change the strategy to allow a return to normalcy. Do you have a timetable for that? On our epidemic control strategy, at the moment, the quarantine period is 3+4. Now we're seeing a positive trend of the number of confirmed cases going down, so we are actively exploring the situation, see if there's room to make further adjustments to that policy. We hope we will be able to complete all the analysis as soon as possible, and then we could make an announcement soon. We've heard different views on the quarantine arrangement, on the requirement of the PCR or any test before boarding a flight. So we're well aware of such views, and as we make our decision, we'll certainly take into account all the different views. But if you heard what I said just now carefully, in terms of our infection control strategy, as I said, I want there to be consistency. And we would like to allow maximum room for connection with the world. So in the arrangement, we would like to minimize inconvenience in an orderly manner as far as possible. So in response to your question, quarantine and infection control strategies are about maximizing the room for allowing convenience to travelers. And when we, before we roll out any new measures, we'll sort out the details and then we'll announce the details in one go. Now, there are many events held in Hong Kong, but then because of our quarantine requirement, so there's need for discussion between the government and these parties, and we would like to arrive at a consensus on certain conditions, and then the events could proceed. On the part of the SL government, definitely we would like to actively support sports events and conferences. And then in terms of infection control measures, we would have active discussion with the organizations for each of these events. Now, of course, the Standard Chartered Marathon has announced either delaying or canceling its marathon, its event. But I hope that the Commissioner for Sports will be able to have further discussion with them and arrange a new date for the event. Now, as we consider applications for events, and before we give the organizer a reply, and then before, while we're still, exploring possibilities, and then before we give a reply, the organizer then made the decision. Of course, we're disappointed with that. But anyway, the Commissioner for Sport will discuss further with the organizer, and the position of the government is clear. We would like to facilitate sports events, major conferences, and so on as far as possible. And of course, I hope that we will all share the same view that we would like to create value for Hong Kong as far as possible, and we would like to bring back activities to Hong Kong that the people look forward to. So the SL government is actively working with all the parties, and we would like to make the necessary arrangement as far as our policies permit. Now, we've had the epidemic for some 3 years now, and I understand that everyone would like to see a return to normalcy before the pandemic as soon as possible. That is also the position of the government. That's also the direction we're working towards. So I've made that very clear. We know exactly where we should be heading, and we want to be consistent as we move in that direction. We want to be connected with the different places in the world. And we want to allow maximum room to do that. And in that process, we would like to have an orderly opening up. But then during the course, there will be various measures and arrangements that need to be made. So we want orderly opening up because we don't want to have chaos in the process or confusion in the process. And then we also like to have better means for us to move in that direction. That is to allow maximum room for events to be held. Thank you. Next, please. To the right, the front row, black.
So Yuen Kwok Yung said COVID-19 has become endemic and COVID rules should be relaxed to return to normal. What do you think about this? And is the government considering to scrap hotel quarantine? And Hong Kong may record its second worst deficit at more than $100 billion. So is this alarming, and what will the government do to maintain Hong Kong's fiscal stability? And also international events like Hong Kong Marathon is called off and Dragon Boat race is moved to Thailand due to COVID rules. So what will the government do to allow room for these sports events to go ahead? Thank you.
The government's position is very clear, as I've explained earlier, is that while we will do our best to control the epidemic, we aim to have the maximum connection with the international world and also to reduce the inconvenience to people who arrive at Hong Kong. That is a very clear goal. And that goal, I am maintaining it in one direction, and I am trying all our best to ensure that we don't roll back any measures that we're doing. So the direction is clear, and we are ensuring that we don't roll back. That's number one. The second thing is we want to ensure that as we progress to allow more activities, we do it in an orderly way so that when people go through the process, they feel comfortable with the process, and we will reduce the inconvenience as much as we can, because every step will involve deployment of resources, will involve ensuring we put into the right amount of people and the right amount of support so as to ensure that things don't get disordered. And we will be actively monitoring the situation so that we will do this as quickly as possible. I'm conscious of the fact that while we need to control the spread of the COVID, we also need to ensure that there will be maximum activities in society and economics activities for society to carry on. And I'm also conscious of the need to maintain Hong Kong's competitiveness by ensuring that we have good connectivity. So you can see we are doing everything in that direction, and we will be announcing the measures once we have made decision about what we're going to do. So regarding the big events that every one of us have been very interested in, such as the marathon and also the Dragon Boat event, of course, we will be doing all our best so that we will be having all these events to happen in Hong Kong, because this is what everybody wants to see happen, and it will create a lot of economic gains for Hong Kong as well. So we will be trying our best to talk to organizers of all these activities. Our position is very clear. We are very supportive, and we want both sides to work towards the goal of making it happen. So we will have to openly and directly talk to each other so as to try a good solution for Hong Kong, because it is both the organizers' interest and the Hong Kong government's interest and the committee's interest for these things to happen. So I want that common will to be developed for the good of Hong Kong, and the government will work towards that goal, regardless of what the challenges can be. And as regard the economic situation, we know that the threats to the economy does exist, and there are a lot of reasons for it, including the interest rate hike, and also the supply chain being disrupted in a lot of areas, and because of COVID as well. So what we have been doing is ensuring that the right injection is being made into stimulating the economy. So the next phase of the consumption voucher will soon be rolled out in October. That we hope will add to the consumption element in society, so as to generate some economic activities, and also some relief measures have been introduced by governments to help SMEs, etc. But there is also some positive figures, such as the employment rate has dropped, if you look at the figures. So we should continue to have confidence in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong, despite COVID, our strengths remain, such as our good infrastructure, our low taxation system, and also the resilience of society. We have a very strong workforce, and we have a lot of competitive advantages, such as being the third financial center, and the common law system, which ensures that a lot of the systems and things that we do are very compatible with international rules and international norms. So we should be confident of ourselves while we work together.
時間關係咧，我哋答
Well, due to time constraint, we'll take one more question.
遠啲嗰位白色衫嗰對記者。
The lady in the front, please. Good morning, Chief Executive. I'm from Hong Kong 01. The Hong Kong's only drinks carton recycler has not been given a renewal of the land lease, and the Singaporean government is inviting the recycler to move to Singapore. So what is your view on this? Now, several major sports events and major events have been cancelled, and we have a brain drain. It seems that Singapore is winning it all. So as the Chief Executive, how would you convince Hong Kong people that we are moving from governance to prosperity? Concerning individual recycler, because of the end of the rental agreements, well, the EPD has approached the recycler to offer help, including offering several locations for continual operation. The government supports recycling. We have actively reached out to the recycler to come up with ways to help it. In terms of recycling facilities in Hong Kong, we have the Eco Park. Tender has been invited. Interested parties have set up their operations as the Eco Park and other facilities. The Hong Kong government does support the recycling industry. However, we have a land shortage. So we have to strike a balance in terms of supporting various industries to care for their future development, as well as offering them with the help they need. At the same time, we have to keep the epidemic under control. We understand that our connectivity with the world is has been undermined. The government is aware of that. As I've said on many occasions, our policy direction is to maximize the connectivity with the world, as well as to minimize the inconvenience to inbound travelers because of our anti-epidemic measures. On this front, we are moving towards our goal gradually and consistently. We should all have faith in Hong Kong. After so many turmoil in the past, Hong Kongers have displayed our resilience. We have a very quality workforce. Our system is competitive. In many areas, we rank among the top in the world. Of course, there are lots of different challenges that we are facing. With our united efforts, we can overcome these difficulties and then turn over a new page. Thank you.